Hello traders, and welcome back to another price action trading session for Friday, December the 27th, 2024. The contract is the Micro E-mini Nasdaq 100 futures, expires March 2025 up here, and the time frame is 1,000 ticks, but we're going to start by looking at a daily chart. You can tell obviously that the Nasdaq is in a strong uptrend. Yesterday is marked with an arrow. It looked like a potential reversal bar to me, and so I thought this morning that our day today could potentially be a downside, a sell-off type day. And if we look at the pre-market today, that's exactly what was happening before U.S. equity markets opened at 9:30 Eastern. Strong sell-off in the pre-market up until equity opens. So I'm watching the open here, and we basically get a consolidation or a pullback or a triangle, and then continued selling into the open. So I'm looking for an entry. This pullback, I was hoping for an entry, but it's just an outside bar, which is really tough for both entering a trade and setting your stop, your risk on that trade. So I entered on this breakout of the expanding triangle outside formation here. So into the low of the day, into sell-off strength, and I didn't have my stop in the right place. I had my stop set at 10 points, which is quite typical for me. Volatility was a little bit higher than that. I should have had my stop above the high of this pivot up here for sure, which was about 26 points, 826, and I got stopped out at 818. This pullback never went higher than about 823, so that would have been obviously that is the price action location to set your stop, either at the last pivot or at the high of the signal bar. Either one would have worked just fine. Okay, first trade is a stop. My second and third, or my second trade, we'll call it, I had two entries back to back, and that was the same thesis as the first. We're just seeing downside momentum. There wasn't a great pullback entry here on this pullback, which is typical for strong trends, right? Strong trends are really difficult to get into. So I just made a momentum entry there, set my stop correctly here at the high of this pivot or at the high of this pullback, and didn't have to wait too long before I could start taking profits, and took profits into strength on these two contracts, on a pullback here on this contract, and then into strength, and a breakout through the low of the day, and a little pullback then on this last contract. So this is, it doesn't say on this chart, but this is two contracts in, two contracts out, two contracts in, two contracts in, and then one out, one out, one out, and one out. Okay, so the day's looking okay. We're definitely in a downtrend. We're trend trading, huge strength, micro channel here to the downside. The first pullback out of a micro channel typically fails. That one did, but only for one bar, and it didn't even reach the low. So this micro channel has played out, and now we're looking for a pullback of some kind, two very small legs. And then this is an interesting trade. So this is counter trend, and it's trapped traders. So if you look at this clear downtrend, this massive strength on these 2, 4, 6, 8 bars here, consecutive bear bars, and then a very modest bounce on this flag, bear flag, and then a nice strong 1, 2, 3 bar breakout to the downside through this flag, down the bottom of this flag, through the bottom of the low of the day, big strength. There's lots and lots of downside bear traders who are entering on the bottom of these couple bars, on this pullback, on this breakout here of the flag, on this breakout here of the low of the day. Lots and lots of downside traders. Now look at this bar here. This is an outside reversal bar to the upside. Now everybody who's entered below the close of this bar, which is at about 716, is now trapped. And everybody who entered on this pullback is at risk of becoming trapped if this now rallies to the upside. And this is an extreme sign of strength. So that possibility is very real. We get kind of an indecision bar and then another strong bar, and I take a counter trend trade there to the upside. And I'm just looking for the top of this pullback, which is at about 729. And so I take my trade off on the next bar, and it does run up through that high, but it doesn't go any higher than that really before we get resumption. So lots of one-sided trading, lots of strong bears, and then some trapped bears. And what do you get? You get a big sharp move in the opposite direction. The trend continues nicely. We're getting these pushes and pullbacks, pushes and pullbacks. And then at this point, this is by far the largest pullback of the day. So if we look at this huge trend and all of these small pullbacks that have come before, we've got half a dozen small bear flags that are breaking up this very strong push to the downside. And then we get this really big bear flag that breaks the trend line since the open at least, and continues up in a few legs. On this 1,000-tick time chart, it's a couple legs. It's maybe one, low one, leg two, low two, leg three, and then you get again, I think. So this is leg one, low one, leg two. There's technically a low two there, low two, and we can say leg three, just for simplicity's sake. And then you start to get some sell-off again and some downside strength. Now, looking at this, looking for a place to enter and hoping the price is going to come back down towards the low of the day, which is approximately here at about 675. We had a break of this pullback trend line and a breakout pullback, and now some downside momentum, some downside strength. So I enter here. I enter late on this trade for sure. Probably should have entered below this strong bar here. And price does not go in my direction. It goes sideways for a few bars and then turns around and stops me out. And I'm playing now on the same idea as this past successful trade, which was trapped bears, and we're looking for at least a pullback back up to the high, this previous pullback high, which is about 739. So I reverse my trade here and enter at about 729, 2 contracts, and take profits 1 and 2 as we break through this high. So this is unfortunate entry and pretty much an instant stop and a good recovery trade, thinking on my feet there about what's happening. Okay, another trade here, looking to get back into this downside trade. The trend is bearish. You need to be trading to the downside for the vast majority of your trades. So entered here, stop above the high of this strong signal bar here at about 729. I take my first contract off here at a nice profit, and I flatten that trade as it comes back towards my entry. Doesn't look like it's going to go straight down to my target. After I exit here, obviously this thing goes sideways for a few bars, little breakout, pullback, and then a trend down to the low of the day and the pivot low. And now we're seeing continued downside momentum. Big move that I sat on the sidelines for and couldn't find a place to enter properly. This is a bad signal bar. Didn't feel comfortable getting short below that. And there's not really any other pullback on this move. This is a micro channel if you want to look at it that way. And I had FOMO at this point and entered. This is a bad trade. First bad trade of the day right here. And I get stopped instantly. And then there's a 2-bar reversal, and I get short because this is a break of a micro channel. And the first break of a micro channel typically just results in continuation, which technically, if you're looking at it, was probably the first break of the micro channel was this bar here. And indeed, it did resolve in continuation to the downside. Anyway, at the time, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about a 2-bar reversal here, strength to the downside, a breakout of this 2-bar pattern. I enter below and pretty much short below and get stopped right away. So this was frustrating. Big strength. I missed the move. I get in too late. This is a bad entry, and I get stopped. This is a decent entry, and there should have at least been, there is no should in trading, but there could have at least been downside to at least the low of the day, 615, so it would have been a small scalp. Nonetheless, I get a pretty much perfectly bad entry and get stopped right away. And then what happens? Well, we have more bearish downside. So trend continuation, breakthrough low of the day, breakout, pullback above the low of the day, and then continuation. So good entries in here anywhere below this. On on this strong bar, below this doji, below this strong bar, which was my entry here, I add 2 contracts because this thing is going down like crazy, and take profits on those contracts here, and I jump right back in. So I start to scalp here because of these 2 losing trades. I'm trying to take some profit off the table rather than swing my trades, and the reason for scalping is to have a higher win rate, a higher probability of wins. The more you swing, the farther you swing, the lower your probabilities, right? So I'm trying to get a couple winning trades and get a couple of points back in my favor. So short here, add to that trade, out, out, out. Short here again, take my first contract off. The second contract gets stopped at break even. There's a big reversal here and a push way outside of the EMAs. So I take a reversal trade here on this at this marker and scalp out to the long side, scalp out, break even. Same thing here, scalp to the long side, take my first profit, second contract is break even, and markets are going sideways. So back to waiting and looking for some downside. So this is a breakout. There were a couple entries probably on this move here, maybe below this small bar, maybe on this strong pullback that overlapped the bar before. Up here with a limit order, a higher high on a limit order on that bar. Nonetheless, I take this entry here after these 2 strong bars, set my stop above the high of this previous pivot, and take 1 contract off. The second contract is break even. So at this point, I'm kind of back to feeling a little bit more comfortable. And markets continue to sell off. I take another entry here below this pullback. It does close, this bar does close a doji, but it does close very strong to the downside on the bottom. So I take that entry. This is a very good trade. It does not move against me hardly at all. I scalp out of it. Could certainly have swung that trade much, much, much farther. At this point, my day is looking really good, and generally, for myself, psychologically, when that happens and I still want to trade, I just start taking small profits. Generally, that works. Every once in a while, it backfires and you get some losing trades and it puts you in a bad spot. But today, it's working for me. Short here again, scalp out. And markets are pulling back strongly and sideways. Another similar entry here. This is a nice pullback after a larger pullback and trend continuation. There's a small pullback here on this bar, another small pullback here on this bar, and I just take a bear close in the middle here and take both of my contracts off in similar places. And that's got to pretty much be it for my day. Yeah, that was my last trade. So that's my trading day. If you look at my results here, these are all of my trades, every execution, 2 buys, 2 sells, two sell shorts, 1 cover, both losses for 10 points each for a total loss of 20 points on that trade. That was my first trade, and so on. This is my second trade. And if you want to pause your screen and look at that, you can. These are the first set, and that is the second set in there. Total of 17 trades, 13 winners. I made 178 points, which is about 9 Rs, which translates into about 18% on my account, 76% win rate, and I paid a modest 13% commission, so that's very strong overall. Great. Thanks for watching. Cheers.